Welcome in, everyone. I'm going to go through a little spiel because I know we have some new folks tonight, which I'm really excited about. My name's Corinne. I am with Soul Shift Channeling, and we're going to be connecting with the Akashic Records tonight, specifically the Divine Feminine. The Akashic Records are like an energetic space of knowing. A lot of times, like if I do readings with someone, with a person, I open up their Akashic Records and connect with their higher self, their soul self, and that can span into past lives and future experiences and really beautiful perspective. But when we do something with a group like this, I'll get in touch with a different record. So instead of one person, that's kind of an overarching. And so these 3 months, January, February, March, we're going to connect with the Divine Feminine, which I'm really excited about and thrilled. Tonight's theme is going to be death and rebirth. So very New Year's-y. Finishing cycles, starting cycles, what that feels like and looks like. So everything has an Akashic record, and this is kind of a way to get in touch with a very in tune, energetic space and sense of knowing. So I'll set some expectations for what to expect. We're going to start out with a short guided meditation. I forgot the words that were really appropriate. Coming to centeredness, because part of what I'm still learning to describe is the energetics around this experience. There's definitely information that comes in, but there's also some energetics. So just kind of preparing our bodies and energies to step into that and receive it as much as we want. So we'll start with that. Everyone, if you haven't gotten a crystal, grab one. My concept here is that there's information that can be captured in the video that I'll send out to you guys, but there's also energy, and crystals are such yummy comrades when it comes to processing, changing, shifting, melding energies. So I think the idea behind this was to kind of give us something to step away from this experience with, and something that can kind of give us little energy radiation over time after the experience. And so from there, we'll go ahead and I'll say a blessing and open the records, and I'll usually get some opening imagery and metaphor. A lot of things come through in images and metaphors, and then after that, the floor is open for questions. So the whole thing is based off of what you guys want to know. Any question for the Divine Feminine around death and rebirth, what that means to you, cycles, New Year things. That's the thing. Does anyone have any questions before we get started? All right. Awesome. The first thing I want to do is a practice that someone recently showed me, which was so helpful. And I want you to go ahead and take just a few moments and write down anything that's on your mind, whether it's a to-do list, something you're stressed about, something you're really excited for, whatever is kind of bumbling around in your mind now. Go ahead and put it onto paper, because it's going to be there for you whenever we're done with this. So feel free to take a moment or two. And as you're finishing up, you can set that list aside or flip it over and use the tools if you want to write down questions or notes, but no pressure. We'll go ahead and take a few moments to get quiet. Find a resting place for your eyes. And take a couple of deep breaths, allowing your body to move and shift and resettle as you need, and that goes for the entire experience. If you need to move, please do so. Resituate. I want you to take a moment to look in your mind's eye as you come up upon a quiet stream or a very small river that you're going to cross safely. And continue to take a couple of deep breaths. Notice this beautiful stream and how the water feels so clear. On the first day of this new year, notice the possibilities that it brings. All the fun things flowing down the river, ready to find their homes in your life, where they need to be. You can imagine putting any other things in your mind or on your heart in this river, knowing that it's going to carry them exactly where they need to be. Notice a couple little fishies swimming around, or some life around the edges, some beautiful moss, or a flower or two. Notice how wonderful it would be to step into that water, feeling safe and supported as you dip a toe in or wade in up to your knees. Allowing yourself to feel refreshed and cleansed. Letting the water carry away anything you no longer need. Noticing a deeper pool of water that you're welcome to venture into. And submerge yourself if you like. Just noticing how fresh and clean the water feels, how it's the perfect temperature, and how it helps you feel at ease and comfortable. Noticing as your breathing slows to its natural pace, as you decide to step across the river and out the other side, where a beautiful bank is waiting for you. Just spread out a blanket and sit in the sun and just listen to the nature sounds, listen to the music, listen to whatever brings you joy in this moment. Coming together, welcoming a flow of information tonight, feeling centered and whole and connected. Whenever you're ready, allow your gaze to soften and come back to the room, feeling refreshed, centered, grounded, and balanced. All right, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and open the records, and then we'll go from there. My center with your center, our center with all centers. Our center is the one center. I enter the realm of masters, teachers, and loved ones of the divine feminine, and match our hearts and minds with theirs. Let us find, through joy and wisdom, the ability to open the universe and ourselves to greater possibility and deeper love. Eternal Source, fill our hearts with clarity and sacred power and show us the divine feminine's place of balance. Hear us now as we become one with the whole. And when we are complete, release us in love and admiration, keeping our energy raised. The records are open. All right, beauty beings. The first thing that I am seeing or noticing is it's like a tree, like a great grandmother tree, and it feels like there are. It's almost like fruit, or almost like it looks like a water droplet, but a very long water droplet. Sometimes they have those ornaments like that, and it almost feels like nectar or fruit hanging from the tree. And I get the sense that the tree comes up and it feels like there's a root for each of us. It has those, like those knees that mangroves have. And there's this concept of each of us having the capacity to kind of pull at this or push into it, whatever we need to. It feels like kneading bread, which I think has come up in the past in one of these before. Yeah, that's the opening imagery that I get. I think we'll probably figure out more about it later on as we go. I'll go ahead and open up the floor. Does anyone want to start us off or with a question, or are there any questions to start out?
Maybe I have a question. I don't know if there's like a question form, or maybe to know more about what's happening there. I was trying to kind of like feel into it with the energy that you just explained, of like the energy.
Yeah.
And the death and rebirth. That kind of like not symbiotic, that's not the right word. But what I feel like I've been in this space of more than ever, because of being curious, and also feeling called to just be in this particular space. It's in between the death and the birth for longer. I'm like sitting in it for a longer period of time. It's not like purgatory would be something it would be called, but it's not like this. I mean, one could experience it as purgatory because they could feel like they're stuck, but I'm intentionally staying here. So is there any more information about what this space is? Because there's no doing, and that feels to my ego like something's wrong. And so it's like I'm a baby that's like I'm ready to go ahead and be born again. Like I'm ready to like start my new life, start the new endeavors. And of course there's all the ideas that I have, they're never ending. And then the urgency to be productive, to show that I am a human doing in the world, and all of that, the eradication of all that agenda, so that I can be this pure, I don't know why I'm being here, but it's, like I said, from a space of curiosity. So is there more information on this space in between?
Yeah.
Just hanging out in?
Yeah. I feel the sense of it is the space between death and birth. And what I'm seeing is the micronutrients, these small bits are almost photons, experiences, it's fragments, but they're also whole and complete in and of themselves. And I see you particularly sitting in between this and feeling it flow through you. And this concept that many people are feeling stuck in this space and time where something has yet to begin. It has not begun. But this space behind us no longer feels welcome or at home. But sitting in this space and receiving this space allows us to feel in our bodies the parts of death that are being pulled through to new life. It almost as if this is passing through our bodies as we stay in this space to inform our bodies of the most basic building blocks that we have to work with, because there's a bit of magic that we have lost a knowingness of. Does this feel clear? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So you're gleaning information. There's not a lot of building right now or producing at all. And yet I hear insatiable. It's like insatiable, sensational. The knowledge is satiating a part of our bodies that are experiencing an energetic remembering of who they are and what powers and abilities we have available to us to cultivate and use together and separately, because I feel the knowingness in each of our bodies is quite different because of our individual energetic blueprints, the agreements, contracts, the way that we've set up our own playgrounds of building blocks, our own sandboxes, and yet coming together with other people also experiencing this allows us to create something alchemically new. And yet we can only really understand how to create new things and collaborate in that new sort of way if we really have an understanding of what's in the toolbox, so to speak.
Could this possibly be related to the death of the third dimension?
Brilliant, and absolutely, though the clarity of it feels not like there's something that's severed or cut or doesn't feel cleanly apart. It feels like a lot of these processes happening at the same time and overlapping in strange and unusual ways. So it's almost difficult to define an ending or beginning, because there is also so much life in the middle of this space, because I feel like we're zooming in now to this space between death and rebirth. And it's like, how could anyone call this death or birth? Because it is so much life. It is so much life. It feels like a network or a city puzzle, or like something, many lights. But zooming out, there is a capacity to hold a new way of life that is more recognizing of our abilities to be and create, because they are changing. 5D reality is a way to describe this, but it feels like so much more than these letters. There's a need for definition around this, because there is a lot of, it's like everybody pulling from the same, it's like, those, when they mix the taffy up, and it's like if they have two different kinds of taffy and everyone pulls from it, and everyone's going to get something different because it's not necessarily homogeneously mixed. this is the same sort of thing. So it feels like labels might not be super useful for us tonight. And yet there is an expression that the space we are flowing into is one that contains more magic and aliveness on an intercellular level. It's like parts of our bodies are going to become useful when they have been dormant because they have not been used. This is the meaning of 5D reality that I'd like to use tonight. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah. And also, guys, don't be shy. Sorry, no, I don't mean to make the beginning of this too formal. I hope it feels very accessible and flowy and easy for everyone, so don't.
So if you're talking about between birth and death and rebirth, how's that different from the eternal? Like where your higher
Source.
self would be, is that different?
Higher self is a transitory thing. Higher self moves, I'm understanding. It's like a bus or like an airport bus system where it's constantly going and it's never really in one place. To understand your question, you're asking death and rebirth versus like eternal.
Yeah, you're talking about an area between death and rebirth. I would have thought that's part of the eternal, is it not?
Yeah. There is a satiation of motion that is experienced in eternal space. Eternal space feels as though it is void of direction. There is no transition, transitory nature, no A or B. It's A and B, and no one needs to go nowhere, so to speak.
Thank you so much.
And this death and rebirth feels separate somehow because it is a cycle. There's motion even if we are experiencing stationary along the way, because this stationary, Lita, as you were expressing, is a stillness within motion. It's like how we can be still on this planet and yet it is still motioning. But we feel still. There is, how do you say it? Like a mesic space, as in a interstitial. It's like the space between connective tissue that has an element that is. It's like plasma. If we think of the states of matter or something, there's solid, liquid, gas, and then plasma, which is all of them at once and also not individually one of them. And it is something I have not wrapped my head around. But that is the closest thing to understanding. It is source, but it's still of motion, it's still of movement, it's still of cycle. It is like being thrown into the air, and almost that moment where you're suspended and you're not going up or down, but you're flying, and it's not the same as flying, but it's that wild balance where you can't tell what's up or down, you can't tell what's composed and what is decomposed. It looks very similar. In that moment, it feels like in a snapshot in time, there's a lot of overlap, but the, not even over time, it's different. It feels different. Yeah. That landing doesn't necessarily have to land.
Maybe it's like different. I don't know how it works, like different dimensions. Because I mean, it sounds when we're talking about death and rebirth. I mean, and then, well, and just how how else it can translate through speaking energetics, but of the Hermetic principles, which govern this 3D plane and everything that we can conceptualize, beyond planet Earth, like the galaxies and so on and so forth. But then the other dimensional realities that we can't even conceptualize that are not governed by Hermetic principles, like the polarity. Like, so the death and rebirth are the poles that you're talking about, of like this cyclical thing. Like it's the pole, ends up coming to the pole. The magnet, they're both there. And so maybe it sounds like you're playing in between, talking about two different dimensions and two different laws happening.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels
With
like
the infinite.
Yeah.
And then in contrast or in comparison, whatever was trying to be teased out there, of the death and rebirth.
Yeah. It's the motion of it versus like reverberation almost. Source space feels like reverberation. Death, rebirth, space is space in between, feels like if you are not moving, something is moving through you, or you are moving. There's motion. Whereas source space is much captured in divine feminine principle of reverberation. But it's, yeah.
Through you, the reverberation through you, because going back to how you explained it, of it's going through me, that is how it feels. It feels like I'm just completely empty, and I'm not letting anything catch me. Although I could make the choice to catch something, or to let something catch me, and that feels empowering, to like have that awareness to choose. But I'm almost, it's a playful thing of just like, how much can I let go through me and just watch this? But, okay, I was going to tie it back into the reverberation. Yes.
Yeah.
So almost like sound waves, how sound waves can like
Wash through you.
Through something and not
That's
hit something. Yeah, I guess I'm processing.
No, you're right. I hear you. I see you.
What's happening there? This is my question. What is that?
Yeah.
What does that mean that we can do one or the other? Like, what do we do with that tool, I guess?
Source space is the sound wave that's passing through. Feeling that sound wave pass through us is our experience of the divine within the cycle. But source is the beingness of that sound wave. The center, feeling it equally all around you, feeling it, just feeling the body hum or something. It's like the, the heart emoji that's like little bit heart, medium heart, big heart. That's like source space. Whereas experiencing that, feeling it flow through you, having a perception of here, there, that is that death and rebirth space, that they are there is an acknowledgement of the truth of source, infinite possibility in both of these places, in source and in the experience of source, but the motion is the difference. experiencing something separate from self, but that resonates with self, is an individual experience, or is that death rebirth cycle versus almost like non-duality, like conscious, like there's nothingness, but it just feels like this reverberation. I think you're on it. Yeah, I see what you're saying, and they're also showing me you almost like cartwheeling through this area. I feel you like it's almost like you're at like 56, 57, and you're like, I have no concept of my stomach, what's up or what's down. Like that's that feeling of there's no separateness from me and anything else.
So when you talk about this death and rebirth, when it is said like that, I think very one-dimensional, knowing that nothing in this world is one-dimensional. I mean, it's multi-dimensional. I mean, is there death and rebirth going on many different levels? I mean, it's not just point A to point B. Is it in someone's life, like
every moment? I'm even seeing, like, I'm looking at this shelf that the pendulums are sitting on. It's almost like you can see it's like sparkles coming down from the wood. That is what we would call deceased. It's dead. It has been used, but there is still a living and dying process in it. There are parts of our bodies biologically that are constantly living and dying, being born and being unborn. Then there's also the concept of like energetic thought and like ideas, or these things that are non-tangible that are also living and dying in each moment. And really it feels like now it's just like the interaction of like a lot of different spirals, just spiraling and crossing with everything and making kind of a giant mess, but also a beautiful symphony of chaos.
harmony?
Yeah.
If you're talking about kind of all those vortexes of chaos, like how do we sit and find the peace when it feels very
Go where I'm at.
Yeah, there is a sense of stopping in the process of becoming still and allowing the process to move. It's like if we were able to exist on the earth, but the earth continues to spin and we're moving compared to the earth, but if we were still and the earth was moving. To stop self within a process allows us to experience it. I'm hearing outside of time, but then I am also seeing like a time lapse, like when like it's happening quickly. So there's like a timelessness of it, because there's a concept of slowing down and stopping self. Like, let's take this to the tangible reality, because like if we're sitting with, I'm seeing a cat, if there is a cat that is dying or a cat that is giving birth, or I mean in a cat in any stage of life, arguably, especially one where it's acute, where it's an action of dying, if we are still and receive and witness this process, it's the emotional attachment that makes it hard, because it is our attachment to each moment. It's like we're trying to hold on to the earth and stop it from spinning in every moment. That's what the emotional is like, grabbing it and holding it and feeling like our arms are being ripped off, but somehow they're not, because they're stronger, but our bodies are receiving that friction, pain, division, so to speak, when we can stop ourselves in the process and bear witness. It allows us to go down, I'm hearing go down a dimension, if we count emotionality as a dimension of our experience and existence. It allows us to witness it in a way that is much more informative when it comes to the energetic processes. Emotion is actually just a lens or sphincter or opening or a passage. Like they're showing, I see that meme that's on the internet of like a human and there's a hole in it and it is a river flowing through and it says emotions are our visitors or something like that. Or emotions pass through us. But this concept that emotions are our attachment to actual processes, truths, tangible realities. And that perspective of trying to like catch on to something and go with it, or catch on to something and redirect it, catch on to something and use it in a different way, that's where we are losing sight of things. And that's part of our shift to 5-dimensional reality, as we've discussed tonight, in the sense that we'll be able to witness all these little particles and pieces that are happening and flowing through us. And we're in this moment of witnessing them because they are going to come online or come to greater use or come to our attention, so that we may interact with them in a way that is in accordance of how they would like to go. It's like all those spirals that are going crazy directions, right? That seems like chaos and looks like chaos. Practicing non-attachment is going to allow us to see the pattern or see the rhythm or see the pathway that we can then move throughout, that arguably also looks like chaos, but is somehow becoming interwoven in a way that creates a frictionless aliveness that we have yet to fully experience as a collective community.
That sounds fun.
So does
I see the
emotion
teacups.
connect all the sorts?
Correct. It creates a connection, and this connection distorts our energetic experience, which distorts our if something is pulling at or distorting our energetic experience, then it's like it distorts our eyeballs. Then everything we see is distorted. If we hang on to something and it's like cartoons stretching our body, we become distorted, and thus everything we perceive is also distorted. This can be understood as getting lost down the rabbit hole, which I won't go down another rabbit hole, of psychosis. This connects to deep trauma and the body needing yet to understand the flow of the patterns in a particular moment, in a traumatic moment, can create an attachment of our energetic body to this particular moment in time, or a series of moments in time, something like this, right? And this attachment, when it's a deeply misunderstood wound, because our wounds and our pain is just a misunderstanding of how the world really works, however you want to classify the world as. It's that creates chaos in our lives and can pull us, that attachment, that that deep misunderstanding or inability to see in that moment that creates an attachment that so tragically distorts our bodies so that everything around us becomes more and more and more and more chaotic. And so when we are actually deeply attached to something and are considering humans in the throes of psychosis, they are almost mirroring the chaos of the universe as it exists. So it is a deep insanity, and also like the most clarified sanity, because it is the most clarified picture of what's going on or something like that. Does this make sense? I'm reminded that I feel like we were talking about paradoxes the other day.
Mm-hmm.
This feels like one of those.
I did want to ask too about,
Yeah.
so you gave us the like image of first of the tree with the fruit and everything, and it felt like very like life and like nurturing and sustenance and stuff. But is there like another maybe like polar image like associated with it that could give us a bit of like movement?
Oh, I see. A
Or, like,
movement oriented.
more on the death than the life side.
I'm not sure. It very much like now
Is there death within that? Like,
I mean, according to what we're hearing, I would argue to say yes. And the only thing that I'm feeling is like, they're showing me more of this image, right? Of those like teardrop things that feels like they're holding nectar or liquid. It's almost like honey water or something. It's not super syrupy or anything, and it feels very hydrating. But and it almost is like it's wrapped in cellophane, not cellophane, like cling wrap kind of. It's like easily torn or something like this. I feel it flowing through our bodies, and then I see all these little like black specks or dark specks, that it feels like it's almost like shot, like it's flowing them down through to our feet. And so the only death that I really feel in that space are the detriments of movement that those black specks represent. It feels like they're almost like not black holes, but like it's sucking aliveness. It's like schmutz or something. It feels like what we would call death. Yeah.
Well, it's not. You said there's a sucking in the black hole, and earlier she said it looked like we each had like a branch of the root, and so if we're in the root, that makes sense. We're in winter, where like the energy, and you did say that there's the ability to bring the, I don't remember the exact words, life force or whatever, that energy like back and forth from the tree. So if we're in the root, to me that
we're part of the process that is like.
Well, you know, winter, like all the plants' energies go down into their roots until springtime again, and then it gets pushed out into the fruit.
It feels very much like feels a little magical realism, because I feel like we're like kneading. It's almost like taffy. It's like taffy or like kneading bread or something. It's like we each have one of these roots that are not necessarily legit tree roots. They're like taffy and malleable, and it's like pulling and pushing and pulling and pushing. And I have a feeling that is likely most representative of the energetic flow of tonight, of this evening. Often at the beginning of these, or I'm finding at least in the last couple, there have been like a visual image to go with what we're working with somehow. Yeah.
Are you saying that the imagery of us with the roots is specific to this
It feels specific to this, this experience or this moment in time. Yeah. Whereas most of the other content that is helpful. Yeah. Most of the other content that I think we're touching on feels more, obviously is pertinent in this moment, but feels more, I'm nervous to use the word timeless because I feel like the moment that comes out, it shifts and changes, but not as limited to our particular circle experience tonight. Yeah.
I do want to ask about the bread, though.
Yeah.
And without sounding like someone who's like super, super Christian, I'm going to tell you that I just read something super, super Christian today. And it was the Gospel of Peter, and it's describing the day Jesus died. And it talks about it being a bread leavening festival. And it's like, they're at the festival, and then this happens, and then it comes back at the end, and they're like, and then they go back to the festival, or something, they go home because the festival is over. So, I don't know what it means, but I want to know what it means. I'm feeling it. What does that mean?
The bread, the
what's
festival,
up with the
or the bread part of
Is it
what we're working on?
I love that it came up. Mead. No, mead is what you said, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So that's it. Mead is honey wine.
Oh, yeah, no, that's right. Oh, that sounds like what's in those,
Yeah, it does. Like
manna,
watered down version. Manna.
That's it. I don't know. I just like the symbolism of the bread. Now I'm curious about it, but maybe it'll come.
Yeah, it feels like it's a process. Like just like making bread, there is pulling and pushing, almost like waves of an ocean, and everyone makes bread differently. Everybody's gonna need. They always say, that bakers have a particular pattern, or I'm even seeing like potters with clay, the way that it's kneaded could be considered as unique as like a fingerprint, in the way that we all engage with it. I think the value here is that we each have our individual access point. It is not as though we are all shaping one sandcastle and working together, creating one thing. We each have individual aspects and components of the information at hand that we are grappling with through our own phenomenological and individually informed, perceived, lensed approach, and that pace or structure matters not, for there are infinite numbers of bread and they're all made differently.
You said pace and structure matter not.
Yeah, the way we consume this information, the pace at which it trickles through our consciousness and awareness. For many, it will hit vibrationally. For some, it will clarify auditorily. For yet others, I feel it like flowing through sinuses. And other people are gonna feel it in their feet. Someone's, walking and, I'm laughing because I have done readings with a number of you guys, and I feel like I'm hearing little tidbits of I a little bit know how some of you connect with energy, and it's funny because I'm getting the information and then I'm seeing the person that I perceive that it matches to, which is kind of funny and surreal. But the point is, I think we each have different ways of connecting with this, and they are not to be compared or contrasted, except for the joy in learning and knowing trying to know something that we literally cannot, because we cannot understand the true experience of another, and yet the ability and the capacity to interface, to open ourselves to one another, is one that is a beautiful and rich process, and in and of itself is so similar to that death, rebirth, and the interstitial space in between that allows us to perceive our own holdings of the blocks of magic, the building blocks of magic of life that flow, that we house, that we hold, that we have space for and can witness that. That's part of that. So basically our vulnerabilities and our connectedness with someone else is almost mirroring that polarity of like birth, life, death, weirdo space in between. That's like our vulnerability with another person, is allowing for that. There's death and rebirth constantly between us, and all those magical little pieces are flowing through. And when something dies, it is broken down to these building blocks so that it may be utilized again, so that they may be rebuilt, they may be used to structure a new thing. So too can we come together with another human being and slough off what is dying and dead for us and allow that to be taken as manna or as the building blocks of life for another person. This is the draw we have for one another, because if we are quite well matched up in what is dying and what is being born, coming alive within each of us, it will inform our connections with other people and how we come together. Does this make sense? Yeah, I'm having a moment of gratitude, y'all. I really appreciate everyone coming and experiencing this space together. This is super cool. I'm jazzed to spend my evening like this. Very much. Yeah.
No, thank you.
Will you repeat that last part about the dying, the part you have to be aware of the part of you that's dying off so that you can understand the connections that you're having with others, because that's correlated in the cycle of it all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not necessarily that you have to understand it. It can be particularly beautiful for us to perceive this in this moment in time. But the interfacing of two people and having the capacity, comfortability, awareness to experience dying and being born of, from, to another person, with another person, is massively insane. Because let's say I am dying, or part of me is dying and part of me is being born. And this feels very connected to trauma experiences, the things that bind us to a particular point, place, and time, and singular energetic experience, whatever this is. That's the purpose of death and birth, of dying and being born again, so we can become not attached to these things and let them the fuck go. Because we are trying to find our space in the middle of all those swirly bits and bobs in the universe. And so to be able to come to another person and die before them and say like, okay, it's like, I mean, it's amazing. And it's also like nothing, because I'm seeing like two toddlers and one just like kicks the other's like block tower down. It's like, you know, and then all over again. And then when that is destroyed, it's like they can build things separately and together using mixing pieces, because part of my tower moment, part of me dying, is going to make information, energy, that weird music in the middle stuff available, stem cells available to you. And to get that, you have to, it's like hermit crabs. It's like hermit crabs outgrowing their shell, right? To get a bigger shell, you have to get out of your shell. It's dangerous. You don't do it in the middle of just anywhere, or maybe you do, but it might not go so well if there are enemies around, or if there are predators, or the circle of life, and that's also okay too. But it's just like laying out on the table the cards that you have, the blocks that you have. And it's also part of this selfless act of, or not, it is selfless, because if you're done with something, you're done with something. It lays on the table and it is fair game. And how much of a joy to see that thing going to someone who's needing certain ingredients in birthing something. And we can use this as a lens to understand what and why we are drawn to other people in certain ways. Sometimes we're drawn to other people because we're quite aligned in putting things down and picking things up. Other times we just want to build deeper and higher the towers that no longer serve us, and we find someone who's willing to do the same, you know?
Different types of law of attraction.
Yeah, because one feels like very symbiotic, and it feels like when you are doing the symbiosis that you both become lighter, more agile, more easily able to see the gaps in the space of the universe, so to speak. The chaos becomes less. There's another where chaos begets a deeper entrenchment in chaos, which really is just a deeper and more rigid form of emotional attachment to particular things. If we have a deep attachment to something in particular, and we find someone else that also has a really deep attachment to this, it doesn't even have to be the same thing in particular, but somehow being around someone else who's like really pulling more weight than they need to, it is more easy to be empowered to keep doing it in our own fight, you know? If we see someone else bearing down, doubling down, really just sweltering under the weight. Like I'm seeing people weightlifting in the gym, which is something that personally I don't feel super drawn to, but doesn't mean that it's not, you know, whatever. If you're going to lift a massive amount of weight and make things harder for yourself, it's easier to do that if you see everyone else doing the same thing. And you're like, oh, I can do that too, you know? And then it almost becomes something entirely different, a competition, but it feels heavier. It feels like it gets harder to breathe every second of that.
So what's the antidote to that?
I seem like putting the weights down, allowing ourselves to put it down. Put it down. This is that like emotional non-attachment to things, literal and figurative. Our ability to put down the places where we live, to put down the people that we love, not like I'm putting you down, but like, yeah, but to release, yeah. Because when we put things down, the tides of time flow in and correct, and we will be often surprised because sometimes we move right next to the tides, pick both of us up and move us in the same place at the same time, in the same direction, the same speed. And then it's like, wow, what confirmation is that? Mm-hmm. And then other times you put things down and it's like, okay, I'm going over here, you're going over there. One of us is going in an eddy and we're just spinning around a lot, and then you leave one day and it's fine. And you're in different spaces. And sometimes you meet up and sometimes you don't. But the concept is to have the trust in the universe, to have trust in source, to have trust in God, to have trust in to have faith in the power of this force to create a more easeful experience of your energetic expression. I.e. to make your life easy and more better. Yeah. How's everybody doing? I feel like this one we're getting particularly heady tonight, which I am loving, but we can also put this with our feet on the ground whenever we can do. Yeah.
I keep visualizing like emotions coming like asteroids, and I have this sling thing that I'm catching it and I'm slinging it back.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
Yes, this is your particular dance. This is your dance. The concept here of slinging, if we look at centripetal force and centrifugal force, it's allowing emotions. Yes, I see. Okay. That's a great way to not touch them and to make them not touch you, right? And it is working smart, not hard, which is also hashtag physics and science. Yes. And they're showing me this image that we were talking about before of conceptualizing, not with the big ones, not the big asteroids, not the ones that feel like they're going to destroy your planet. The little ones that are nice, that are like Tinkerbell sparkles. Seeing what it feels like to create an ethereal, to create your body as ethers, for your body to become etheric enough for them to pass through. Start with the little ones. We can all serve to do this. Start with the little ones, allow them, witness even the ripple effects of how they go through our bodies. This is what you're talking about at the beginning too, of the things flowing through, but witnessing, maybe even not even paying them attention. And then all of a sudden it's like we come back into form. And become solid again. And yet we have created a new pattern that these emotions that are just coming at us, somehow it's like they go through us, but we can't see. It's like their ghosts instead of we're the ghosts. It's like their ghosts and they just pass through us. And sometimes we can feel a shiver from a particularly big one, but this is a way to step into new dimensional reality. This is a part of the process. How do we say not part of the process? This is a signifier of this is one aspect. This is just one aspect of many, 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 many that allows us to experience non-attachment and to be fully embodied and on this planet and not just kind of woo out in space.
So you're saying emotion originates outside of us and travels to us?
Not always, because we can make it. We are emotion-making factories if we want to be. Sometimes we live with emotion-making factories. And it's an outdated way of life. It's something that causes us pain and trauma. It also is a source of great joy. It's part of the experience of gaining the highest peak and the lowest depths of planetary experience. The key is to be able to catch on to them when you want to and to let them go when you want to. The problem happens when we don't let go. That's when we feel like we are caught on to the back of a speeding bullet or a moving truck or something, and we're just like little ragamuffin dolls being dragged behind something. We have to let go, which feels terrifying when I'm thinking of like a cartoon or something of like someone's hanging on to something and it's like things are going so fast and it's like I'm not letting go. The one thing that's stable in here, like I'm not letting go. But then it's like that's what's making everything so unstable. Let go of the rope, you know? And it becomes easier to allow this to happen when we take our focus off of what we are letting go and allow our focus to come closer to our body. And in fact, come back into our body. Because let's say I have an attachment to a human that I love dearly and I am hanging on to that human like crazy. All my focus is on is this human. If I can take that focus and focus on why I'm attached to that human, what I value in that human, what I'm tying that human up with to hold on to that, I can trace that back and I can trace it back into my hand and realize why I decided to make this rope to begin with. What is my hand reaching for? What is the need that I'm seeking? What am I asking for that created that situation? Because if I can bring my attention away from person, away from the reasons that I keep them tied up, to the core, to the root, to what I feel lacking, then I can truly begin to understand myself. I can trace it back even further in time to where that need originated. And that is likely from hanging on to something else super duper hard. So the key to letting go in this hand, just like a magic trick, the key to the magic trick is following it back and seeing what is going on with this hand. Does this make sense? It's, yeah. Yeah. I'm going to unpack that for myself later. Yeah. Yeah. Did that answer your question? How are we doing? I'm going to check on time because the last time I really lost track of it very much. We're doing good. I think we're probably going to go for 7:15, right? Is that correct? Is it 7:15? We didn't have a timepiece last time. Okay, cool. We've got another like half an hour, 40 minutes. We're early. We're cruising.
This is kind of taking it more surface level. Like I feel like we're doing a lot. So, but this is just the idea of the divine feminine is really interesting to me, and I just don't know much about it. So, any sort of knowledge you can share about that is very, very interesting.
Yeah. I'm immediately seeing someone like kind of flowing and moving, and then almost like Vanna White like tapping like, and I hear the Jeopardy, or not Jeopardy, what is it, the Wheel of Fortune sound, and it like she taps it, and it's this concept of the motion and ability to dance, create, to task, to create shift and change within flow. Like that's what it feels like it boils down to, kind of connecting to like the essence is the image we had before of things just spiraling in all these crazy directions. The divine feminine witnessing these and then bending and moving and shaping and forming and somehow experiencing the mesic space in between all of them. But when you look at that flow, it looks like its own dance. Like it doesn't look like it's based off of surroundings. It looks like it comes from the center of self. And that is the truth, is it does. Divine feminine is endlessly informed by divine flow, by source space. She is not responding, and she is limiting to an entity. Divine feminine energy at once is writing the story and also playing in the play itself. Yeah, that's the image that I get. We can definitely put more feet on the ground with more specific and honed in, kind of like tacking it down, so to speak.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. For me, it feels not wrong, but it would feel weird to try and tack very specifics down, I think.
You never know. I have this image of part of it seems cruel, but I hear what you're saying. It's almost like I see like a little piglet and like holding a piglet by its little tail, and it's gonna squeal, right? And there's a dangerous way to do that, right? And then there's a playful way when you're like playing, I don't know, it's not when I'm playing with my dog, sometimes I'll like tug on her tail and it's not like abusive, but it is part of the way our bodies move and play. And there is an aspect or a component of in that play with a little piggy in this case, that's one way to hear its voice. Yeah. We could ask the Divine Feminine what she wants to share about today. That might be a really more playful way to explore that space, if you like. Okay. I'm practicing holding and asking questions while I'm also holding this space, but with a group this size, I don't quite feel comfortable yet. So if you or if anyone else has words for that question, that will help me more clearly hold the space. Does this make sense? Okay.
Well, I don't know if I'm the best to articulate.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
But I don't know. I just would love to hear what is on her plate for us, I guess.
Yeah. I feel this energy of, well, since you've asked. I feel like there's quite a bit. Okay. And I feel her like doling out cookies to each of us of like, okay, here's your piece, here's your piece, here's your piece, here's your piece. I'm sorry, ask one more time.
I think I like the analogy I used, the plate. Like, what does she feel is on the plate for this space right now, for us?
Yeah. All right, I feel like there are green beans, and there are mashed potatoes, and then there's something else. I'm going to say, let's start with the green beans, because that's fiber and it's really helpful. There's some things that have been difficult to chew and difficult to digest over time and over the last number of years. This is essential. It's really because these are talks about equality, space in the workplace. This is very much creating space for the feminine in general in the space of this world. This is akin to the green beans, right? It helps get things moving. It's the fiber. There's a lot that needed to be moving. Sometimes eating your vegetables when you're not used to eating your vegetables can be really dissatisfying, distasteful, displeasing. But that doesn't mean that green beans are disgusting, right? She's saying, cook them up with some Kerrygold butter, which is this memory I have of having green beans for the first time, and they were so good. I was like, I could eat these, and that's it. This concept of creating a wider space for feminine expression and feminine value and beauty has been important because we've limited the dance and the expression of feminine self when we try to box her into a particular role, pattern, repeat. Role, pattern, repeat. Role, pattern, repeat. This is not how the chaos works. Chaos, by definition, doesn't have a single role or a pattern. There's no space for a pattern in chaos. This has been I'm hearing the like painful childbirth, the pains in our bodies, the pains in our feminine expression held by all human beings. It's because there hasn't been enough space. It's like when you're traveling on the freeway and you're like way too close to the car next to you or something. It feels like you're in your throat. You're not breathing into your whole entire complete body. When you're not breathing into your whole entire complete body, you're not getting information from your whole entire complete body. You're not getting information on how you can finesse. There's driving at a breakneck speed to get there in time, and then there's like fanciful driving and super fun and like, you know, putting the little flourish on it. There's getting a drink at the bar and then getting a drink where, you know, someone's like getting fancy with it, right? This space for the feminine to get fancy with it has not had the space to express in our community. This is why the fight has been so fraught with bitterness. This feels like it's just like when you're a kid and sometimes you start your meal with the green beans because you better get it out of the way. You know, doesn't mean you're never gonna, once you eat all your green beans, doesn't mean you're not gonna eat them again. There are more green beans for us to eat as a society, so to speak. But they don't always have to taste so bad, right? Because guess what is delicious is when you have a little bit of green beans and some mashed potatoes together. That tastes really good. This concept that we will still have things to fight for, that we will still have patterns of equality, and not even equality, but quality. We have more space of quality to push out and make space for over time. All right, that feels like the green beans. The mashed potatoes. I'm seeing mashed potatoes with like some butter in them or some gravy or something. This, I'm hearing, do you hear my voice? Hear my voice in this like singing and toning. This is the more fluidity. The feminine, aka the flow, we can allow our bodies to carry. Carries so much more than we think it does. It's like hearing someone sing and having part of your body healed. It's like energetic repair. Energetic repair. The importance of freedom of expression for all humans is part of what the feminine can carry. The energy of the like flowing of words and the softness of not softness, it's like flowing water. It's like flowing water. One can think it's very gentle, but it also feels like not destructive, but wave making, changing, reshaping, repatterning, cuts through rock. This is the kind of power that's within our voice as we allow it to sing and dance and rise within us from a space that is both informed by our environment and in response to our environment, but also as our own particular dance. When we have our own particular dance and we are dancing with others, the most beautiful way is to have this connectedness of I am freely expressing and moving my body, and you are freely expressing and moving your body. And we are also reading the energy in between us and all around us that arguably, is it the beginning of us or is it the end of us? I don't know, right? But it's this space that informs everything. Informs everything. When we are hooked into the divine, when we are tapped into source, our source, however we connect with that space, that's when we can truly express. That's what the balance between, it's not even balance between divine masculine and feminine, but that's what she craves. That's what she craves, is this freedom of expression. And furthermore, like, okay. Yeah. Is this not what we would all want to enjoy? Do we not all want to see a performance of people who are so in the dance of the universe? Is this not what we would want to sign up for? It shows us how to have less pain in our lives. The childbirth thing of, it shows us how to have less pain in our lives. It's this attachment and not attachment. Knowing when to let go. They're saying it's not always hard. It's not always hard, but a mama always knows when to let go of her baby. And this coming from those very beginning moments of life when we are born. That's the first letting go. The Divine Feminine teaches us how to respect the interstitial space between us and those around us. She allows us to know how to move and dance, to create, to build things, and as a part of creation, as an exaltation of who we are. Not even who we are, but of divine life itself. Yeah. I heard, okay, thank you. Next, okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm also now feeling this like swirling pattern. Between us. We have the capacity to give okay. Whatever parts of ourselves we would like to give and see grow. And also whatever parts of us that we would like, that we are finished with and would like to be flown away or something like this. So I feel like there's this capacity here now, if you guys want to engage with energetically or within your mind or physically, however, of this concept of the space between us where we're constantly dying, right? And we're also constantly being born. We have the space now to give to and to take from, or to give to, and it's like whatever we need will come to us in this space, moment in time. So go ahead and feel like if you, let's take a couple of moments to do that. Correct. Okay. Does that make sense to everyone? Turns out we're doing activities tonight.
I feel like we're at the tree.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Yeah.
And I picture my cat kind of. That's what I kind of.
Making biscuits.
Making biscuits.
The bread, you guys.
Okay. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yes.
This is a celebration.
Yes. Yes. How does this feel comfortable for folks? Do we want to be doing this one at a time? Do you want to do this all together? How does this feel? I feel we can. All right, I'm going to allow us to do this as I read. Yeah. Thank you, Lita. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, however we feel called. However you feel called. Move my body. beautiful, y'all. Alright, I'm just gonna call us back a little bit. Feeling complete. I want us to have some space and time now if anyone wants to share experience, if that feels comfortable. Yeah, all right, I'm going to try that and say it more confidently. Would anyone like to share their experience? I feel like I know I'm having visualizations, but I'm sure that many, not just me.
I feel like I want to move my arms
Yeah.
above my head and all around, like almost dancing, but just my arms.
Yeah.
My hands.
Yeah, I welcome you to do that, sister. Show us how. Yeah.
Yeah, same here. It started out as like images or words that I was kind of saying, putting out words of what I would want to see grow, what I would want to see go, and it turned into like a very rooted and connected dance. So it was very green. It was like being in the forest, you know, and it just turned into dancing. It looked like me, but it could be her, all of us. Very Celtic. A very Celtic thing to it.
Yeah.
I was thinking about music.
Mine was pretty empty. Just like none of that beautiful stuff. And because of and then I was like, oh wow, that actually goes with what I first wrote in the beginning, which was like, what's on our mind or whatever. Well, there's not much on my mind anymore lately that is gnawing at me or whatever. Really just, still the very human, like, well, where to next? Okay, relax. Where to next? So I saw all of myself, and what I wrote here was where to invest my life force ahead, because I feel like that's kind of where I'm whittling my self down to largely. It's just coming down to, well, I'm still alive in this body, and there's all kinds of things that I can do with this reality. But there seems to be a devotion within me that keeps surrendering and handing myself over to if there is a desire, it's the desire to assist in the reclamation of divinity of this planet and everyone here, which is a process because, of course, I have all my agendas of what I want to see of my life, like who Lita is and what does that look like, and throwing her in that swirling water like over and over again. And then there's just nothing there. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's strange to have so much nothing. And then the desire to continue to throw all of me away, in a sense. I don't really know what it means. I don't really long to know what it means, I guess. Which feels very feminine.
Well, it sounds like a good place to start from. Like, rather than having a bunch of attachments or whatever, like, you kind of have this, like, clean energy that you can do whatever you want with it. Like kind of do that.
Or is it a place you've achieved?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what some people,
it's
get
strange.
strive for their whole life.
It's funny you say that because the imagery of, so we did fireworks and all the things last night with my kids, and I closed the door and locked the door, and my drapes that are right there at the door, there was a caterpillar on the drapes. And so I picked the caterpillar up, and, you know, it was like 12:30 or something. It was the first moments of the new year, and I don't know, I just had to giggle at that whole thing. Like, it's a random caterpillar that I had to put back outside, and thank you for this little confirmation. But here, you know, back here, back to the caterpillar. Okay, we start again.
I saw it's like birds fly around us, almost like in a vortex towards the end, where it felt like folks were like carrier pigeons off to take the messages where they need to go.
I was thinking, when you were talking about all the different, like the green beans and mashed potatoes, and then I just kind of took a moment to think about like Thanksgiving and like where everyone, you know, sitting around the table, kind of like our group thing, and everybody's picking from each different type of thing that's there, and it kind of connects us all. And I was just kind of thinking being thankful for, because I'm going through some like death and rebirth and stuff like that. So just kind of being thankful, you know, for the, you know, kind of like a group mind and things like that. So I just thought we were kind of all connected.
Yeah.
I love that.
Because we all will experience it sometime in our life, you know.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thanks, Serene. And she gave us cookies first. She gave us
Am I the only one sitting here though going, where's the meat? What's the imperative?
Great question.
Where's the meat?
I mean, from the moment you mentioned the green beans and mashed potato, I'm like, where's the meat?
meat?
What
That's
is
a
the
great
imperative?
question.
What is like, look, this is imperative. This is
I
important.
feel like that's very masculine, especially that movement.
Maybe she's a vegetarian.
I also had that wonder when I heard the green beans and mashed potatoes. I was like, I know there should be a third. Cookies? No. I heard to feel it from our toes to our nose. To practice this experience for and in all of who we are, to find that dance, to cultivate that, to feel that rhythm in our bodies.
So like if we're in that box, that if we've created that box or we're in that box, kind of like how to just like break that box down and embody.
Well, the divine feminine, she showed me, she's like, well, I would dance out of it. But yes.
Kind of brings it full circle.
Yeah. Are you talking, tell me box? The box of just like finding ourselves in a box?
Yeah, like what you were talking about, like if we don't feel the divine feminine, like we kind of contain ourselves in a box. Yeah.
Like the roles and patterns,
Right.
the chaos of it.
And so it's that meat, the kind of bringing it all together.
It's just I feel like it's just really sensory based to feel it in our bodies, because while we have grasped this concept cognitively and energetically, manifesting that into embodiment is a task all our own. For some, it's steak. For some, it's tofu. For some, it's cookies. However, we do it, but the goal being to feel it from our toes to our nose. And I do get the sense that it's found and that we can find a pure form of this in the ground, which is something that coming into this, the contact I've had with the divine feminine, which has been not that much, because sometimes it's fun to just see what comes out, and that we'll see next month will probably be different, but it feels so much more earthy and grounded than I thought it was gonna feel. And so I feel like because I would say from my nose to my toes, but it is definitely from our toes to our nose. I think we can ask the earth I think we can draw this energy up from the earth, because it feels less of the feminine, feels divinely in divine accordance with our planet. It feels very planet of the planet. I get the sense that masculine and feminine were seated on the planet. I don't think it's the same all over the place. I think it's a lens that we can look at other planets with, or other experiences, places, things with, but it is very of the earth. And so to come to a fullness of embodiment of the divine feminine would be to ask to receive her from the earth. Because just like the earth was hit with all these asteroids and like pre all the things, it's very much the same as a huge part of what the feminine is attachment, unattachment, and emotion, how to touch, how to not touch emotion, how to flow, how to allow it to pass forward, but also hitch a ride every now and then. And so just like you brought up before of the like asteroids coming in, emotional asteroids, stuff like this, and the earth being hit with all these asteroids, the feminine being the receiver of a lot of emotions, both created from feminine embodied space and not feminine embodied space. Emotions don't just come from feminine. Emotions are separate from the feminine. They are not the same. The value is to allow that dance, to feel that in our body from our toes. And who better to inform that experience as it applies to this planet than the earth?
Can you take it a step further and tie it into the whole site? Because earlier we were talking about the two realms, the realm of birth
Yes.
and death, and the realm of...
Yes.
Okay, so tying it into that, what's the connection between what you were talking about, feet grounded, embodied, feeling, sensing all of it? I wanted to ask how that was connected to the emotion, but you've already answered that. And the way it sounded to me, and the asteroid imagery was almost like when it hits the earth and it creates those tektites, and it's like these little sparkles everywhere that you're having to, move around and only touch when you want to. So how does that connect to the two realms?
Sorry, say it just one more time.
The visual of feet firmly on the ground,
Correct.
sensing everything. I understand how that's connected to the imagery of the dance, because that's the imperative, that you're feeling it, embodying it, dancing, choosing when to engage with these things. I'm curious how that is connected to those two realms beforehand. Like learning to do that dance how does that connect to the cycle of death and rebirth? Which
Yeah. She teaches us how to be in the cycle, and is informed by source. The directions come from connection to source. Those instructions can be different for all of us. Okay, no, you're right. You were paying, yeah. We think of often of our individual connection to source. The divine feminine being born of the planet allows us to connect to source by way of the planet. Which is not a direct connection, which is not a bad thing, right? Of like, source flows through earth, flows to us, right? This is the threading of the machine, threading of the sewing machine almost, right? It allows us to become executors of the agenda of the planet. It allows us to, if the information is flowing through planet first, right? If the divine feminine, at least today, she feels born of the planet, or I don't know. The hierarchy is confusing to me a little bit right now, and it may be because I'm trying to create or find a hierarchy. But because source is filtered through divine feminine, through earth, and we all chose to experience earth and gave bought our ticket, gave our consent to be a part of a team or play on a field. This allows things to play out in a particular way. And then that connects to the death and rebirth, because it doesn't need to connect. She's right. It doesn't need to connect. And playing things out on the planet allows us to, and really getting in touch with divine feminine, and I want to understand divine masculine more. Right? But it allows us to really capitalize on death and rebirth process and cycle, which allows for an equilibration of energy, so to speak.
That makes sense.
And like a unification. Because the goal is, I think, to create, not the goal, it's not, the path forward on that is going to be mimicking that reverberation of source on the planet. Very heaven on earth. But it's not the same thing because it's still differentiated. But I wonder if it's also like making a clone of it or something. Not that, can we clone? I don't know, because it feels the same, but it feels different. Or maybe it's like two places at once, or it's like a reflection or a mirror or something like that. But that is this is part of the ticket to to allowing the flow of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, oddly enough, I followed it. I understand it. Almost like the visual that I had when you were describing the two different places was like the more of that kind of happening here, where we're rooted and dancing.
Yes. Yeah, and how that happens here, those instructions come through the lens of the planet. The divine feeds it, like source feeds it, but it comes through the lens of the planet, which gives us its to-do list, so to speak, right? And if
through the birth canal, through the lens, the womb, and then we're children of God playing on the playground.
That's back to your sphincter image.
Yeah, sphincter was a word. I was like, this is the word.
Sometimes.
Like, you have to say the word.
Dilation. We know that.
Dilation maybe would have been more appropriate. Yeah. 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 I'm going to check it all the time. I feel like we're about, how's everyone doing? Are there any last burning questions before I close?
Is there anything else that we need to know?
I forgot about that.
Good job.
The connection to ourselves is already divine. She, the divine feminine, lives within all of us already. It's not a part that can be broken or lost. It can be overlooked. We can choose not to see her if we so want to. It can never be taken away. Even if we submit our power or our feminine energy to another, she is so encoded in our earthly presence, earthly exposure, and our personhood, our biological personhood on the planet of every human being, that you can't, it's like a computer program that comes on the computer that you literally can't uninstall. So there's no worry or no harshness or no challenge that we could lose this part of ourselves or we could not find it. Sometimes we need to understand how to create the space that allows her to feel safe stepping forward. Yeah. Thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close these records. In love and light. I thank our masters, teachers, and loved ones for their information and guidance. Amen, amen, amen. The records are closed. The last thing I see is like that, from the center of the tree, it's like a waterfall, but upside down. It's kind of like a beam of light, but it's like water. It's like a geyser. A geyser. It feels very like happy, fun, excited, or just rejoiceful.
The cup spilleth over.
Yes. Right, as it comes.
When you said divine masculine, divine feminine, and then I just imagined the third being us, and I pictured the Trinity, which with masculine and feminine, too, like feminine soul. I was just having that conversation with someone the other day. It was like imagery in a song. He sings about how someone on the bottom of the mountain calls up to the woman living at the top of the mountain, a storm's coming, you must come down. And she comes down. If she had stayed, she would have been all right. But she comes down and she dies. Like 15 feet from the door of the cabin in the mountains, she's dead in the snow. And I'm listening to it it's like supposed to be set to like an old, or how these old sad mountain tunes would be like, some poor woman dying, But when I heard him sing that, I was like, that's the soul. You can't kill it. She'll come back to life. And then mother, father, child imagery too. That was awesome. Thank you, Corinne.
Thank you guys all for this experience. Yeah.